What is going on, guys? DBG here, and we are now into the last 48 hours, lads, before NBA 2K21. We are getting very close to the game coming out. So now we're going to be getting a little bit more specific with our tips. So again, if you guys have been watching the previous videos, yeah, to an extent they are a little bit repetitive, but at the end of the day, it's better off going in with a plan and going in as best prepared as possible for the new game. So in this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit more specifically about how to make the best possible team. And this is judging by what I've seen from, honestly, from play now. Because the mode on day one is going to be the most like play now we see, where there's going to be a lot of low rated players. Not everyone's going to have limitless range, and what's likely going to be the case is the guys that do have limitless won't be able to defend, stuff like that. So we're going to see a lot of things like that in the game. We're going to see a lot of things that don't really link to my team based on the end of 2K19, where a lot of you guys might have played. However, these are all going to be completely new things. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how I think you guys should structure your teams, how I think it will make your teams as good as possible, and the types of players I would use at each position, especially at the very start of the game. So at the point guard position, I'm not going to talk about any specifics, but there is really two ways you can go about this. I definitely would suggest going for the former, but you could go for the latter. So the first player is a fast, kind of slashing player who can shoot the ball moderately well and play defense. The badges you need: clamps. Assuming that players either come with the clamps badge or have the ability to add the clamps badge to them. I know if it's only having the ability to add badges to cards and nobody comes with badges, it becomes a little bit awkward because there's no point badging up cards day one. But defense is going to be hugely important as well as that. Quick first step. So if you've got a card with a moderately good three ball who can hit wide open, especially if you get used to shooting with a stick, you'll be able to hit wide open, even moderately good threes. Then defensively, you're going to want to basically have a great defender. And the big reason why I'm saying that is that the majority of people you're going to play against are going to be trying to just rim run with their point guards. That's what everyone did last year, because it was the easiest thing to do. The vast majority of cards in the game did not have clamps, so everyone just roam around with their point guards, which is exactly how I played. But I'm telling you, I would rather have someone to stop your opponent's rim running, because you could always get someone to 2 or to 3 to kind of do that job. But there is a more effective tactic that I'm pretty confident you guys all know of. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So at the 2, what I would suggest for you guys to run is a 3-and-D sniper. One of your 2 or 3 has got to be this type of player. And the player that summed it up perfectly last year was Klay Thompson. So Klay, he had gold clamps and gold range extender. Yeah, like, not every card, you don't need both, but you preferably would have both. Have someone who can shoot from deep as well as someone that can play defense. In terms of the 2 guards, I think shooting from deep is more important. Like, I think it is important to have range extender players because we all know the way spacing works this year. I've seen the Milwaukee Bucks freelance. I've seen what 21 delay looks like. I know we're going to have the same freelance as last year. And I'm telling you right now that zone is going to be overpowered. The easiest way to beat zone is with limitless shooters. So I would advise you guys to have both your wings as limitless shooters, but at the end of the day, just make sure at least one of them does. Because if you're out here running with 5 guys without limitless, or 4 guys without limitless, you are going to struggle. I don't know why I keep calling it limitless without range extender. If you've got a bunch of guys without range, you are going to struggle. Like, if you've got a whole team without range, just like in play now, if someone sits in a zone, it's going to be kind of tough to beat unless you are very strong at the game. So I definitely would advise you at the 2 guard, make sure you've got someone with range. If not, someone at the 3. However, if you do have a shooting point guard, which is what I forgot to say was like the kind of the ladder, was the 3-point shooting point guard. If you do have a 3-point shooting point guard, playing one of the 2 or one of your 2 or your 3 as a slasher, with quick first step dunking and using them to go to the basket may not be that dumb a decision. That might actually be a kind of smart thing depending on the way your team's structured. But I do think point guard, defender, 2 guard and 3 spot up shooters is probably the best way to go about it. Power forward position, spot up shooter. That is all. Just use a spot-up shooter at the power forward position. I'm sorry, like, even if you guys do want to say, oh, I'd rather run a post player at the power forward, then make sure as hell your shooter's a center, or your center's a shooter. At the power forward position, always use a shooter. And you guys can get away, like, you would preferably have a 3-and-D guy, like in 2K20, but always use someone that can shoot the ball. They don't even need to be that, like, they don't need to be that great a shooter. If you're, say, running with a, I don't know, if they come out with a Channing Frye early, that card would be perfect. But considering the fact that it looks like Kyrie, or actually Channing Frye probably will be in the game day one. He's always in the game day one, or week one, let's be real. But someone like a Channing Frye would be the perfect player to have in your squad. Just, he's got a little bit of length, sniper if he is in the game early. And in terms of actual NBA players, Leeds was pretty good last year. There's bound to be one or two good ones in the domination awards. And I think that just make sure you use a shooter. Make sure you use a shooter. That's all I'm going to say. And whatever you do, if you want to use a defender at the power forward position, more power to you. Do not use an out-and-out post player. Do not use a center at power forward that can't shoot. Do not use an out-and-out post player. This is not 2009. That no longer works. This is not NBA 2K13 when no one could 5 out and everyone played 3 out to win. That no longer works. So steer clear from the Blake Griffins of the world. I don't think Siakam will be too bad. I'm trying to think of what NBA players I really don't advise getting. Obviously, Porzingis, as always, is probably the perfect day one option, but he's going to be very expensive. Then at the center position, you can go two ways with this. There are two and a half ways to go. You can either go with your shooter and play 5 out. Because we know the Hawks freelance is going to be in the game. We know that 5 out is probably going to be in the game. We know worst case scenario, we're going to be able to get a 5 out with the Milwaukee Bucks 64 5 out down. Because you can do it in the demo. Basically, we know 5 out is going to be a thing. So what I would advise you guys to do is kind of think what you want to do with your centers. So if you preferably like running through a guard, use a shooting center. If you run through your guard, use a shooting center. Because every center can dunk around the basket. So getting someone that can shoot will help a ton. So if they do come out with a Ray for Friends type card early, if they do come out with a Channing Frye early, they will be the kind of perfect guys again to use at the center position. A Karl Anthony Towns would be really good, but again, he's going to be very, very expensive. And yeah, so I do think that in general, if you like to run through your guards, if you like to pick and pop, run a shooter because it frees up the lane and makes them score easier. However, big men are back. Basically, the post hook system is completely broken. I've been messing around with it in the demo. It is completely broken. If you know what you're doing, you can get a post hook probably 80%. You should probably 80% from inside the post. It is ridiculous. And the fact that we know that Shaquille O'Neal is one of the starter cards. I don't know what the other starter cards are, but I know for a fact with the way the game is, Shaquille O'Neal has got the normal 2 behind the back. He can dribble. As well as that, probably has the Giannis hop step. He is going to be an effective card. Do I think he'll be this absolute spectacular god tier card? No. Will he be effective? Yes. However, Shaq can be dominant. But if, like last year, they just put all of the giants in the early stages of the token market, like last year they had Sean Bradley, Mirasan, and Boban in the early stages of the token market as emeralds and sapphires, just get them. Like, it was they were broken last year. Man, a lot of people were talking about, oh, they loved Mirasan. Mirasan was broken, but like, then they came out with Rick Smits in week 2. That card was broken as well. Rick Smits was like Mirasan with a mid-range. It was crazy. Post game is going to be broken. Especially, I don't see them coming out with a day 1 Mirasan. But I do see them coming out maybe with a day 1 Boban. Who might, you never know. Maybe investing in a Boban because if he's a gold or a silver, all of a sudden when it comes to MyTEAM Limited, he could be an absolute god. So, yeah, that's probably what I would suggest for your starting 5. So, really, 2 and the 3, the 4 you really want a shooter. 1 of your 2 or 3s you really, really want a shooter. Preferably getting a bunch of guys who can play defense as well. But early on in the game, apart from the point guard, really, I think offense is better than defense because a lot of the time you are going to be coming up against 3-and-D guys, the 2 and the 3, who aren't going to expose you on defense. However, just make sure that your point guard is a defensive player because most people will run through your point guards. And then at the center position, just run with somebody, either a shooter or someone that can take it inside. You can do whatever you want with your centers. However, I would advise to make sure they are good at some sort of scoring. that they're either dominant inside, a giant, or a shooter. Don't just use someone because they're high rated. Like, for example, a Rudy Gobert is not going to be good. Just straight up, Rudy Gobert is not going to be good. He never is good. So he's the type of player I'd steer away from. I'd steer away from a lot of the kind of defensive centers. Like last year, there was a Sven Nader card people had early. I didn't think he was good either. But yeah, off the bench, what I would advise you guys to do is, if you like that type of lineup, run similar players. And then as your last three off the bench, just make sure you've got, say, a slashing point guard if needed, a defensive power forward, and a slashing wing. Like, just 3 guys that do something completely different at the end of your bench, just in case you need them. But other than that, though, I think that would be a pretty good way to go. I think the tips that I gave here will put you in a pretty good position going into 2K21. So anyway, that is the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
I think you only love me cause I'm poppin'. This a layup, this a rebound, then it's robbing. Tyson with the fade, not the hair, my hands rocking. When I link with ball point, you know it's not.